Here, I'm gonna go get the bath.
Hi friends, host Eric here. Talking with famous people. Kimberly and I just read through all the comments on this FX and relationships video, and I gotta say, I'm just stunned by. We both were just stunned by the high quality of comment throughout the whole thing. Everybody's got a lot of really useful, interesting things to say. Kimberly said after we read your Comet Power Red Bull that you were the last person she thought about before going to sleep last night. You must have said something previously as well that got in her head. I get the impression that Eric tries hard to be reasonable from a TI logical sort of perspective in their relationship, while it seems that Kim does not pick up what Eric says at all, but instead looks at the things he does and judges his outcomes based on her personal preferences for how his actions should be performed by her own personal standards. Eric's more aimed on intentions and meaning, which makes sense since he's an intuitive, and Kim more on the outcome. Even though Eric may have good intentions doing something, only the outcome is judged by Kim, who just often seems to have her own preferences in how she likes him to act, her own SI preferences. While at the same time, she does not seem to realize that her personal preferences for actions are just only personal preferences and not an objective truth. Facts, not feelings, is something I say a lot. The latter makes it extremely difficult to make that individual act fair, as awareness of the distinction between subjective and objective standards are needed in order to achieve a situation where both parties can act fair. Both parties need to be aware that there are three truths: the objective truth and both parties' individual perception of that truth. If one party doesn't acknowledge there is an objective truth that is more accurate than their own subjective one, they will not be able to improve their perception of what is really the reality. And that's fucking couldn't be any more spot on the money. Everything there is exactly right. The thing is, Kim thinks so too. If I say it, she doesn't think so, but if somebody else does and says it as well as Power Red Bull did here, then it makes an impact. Unless there's such a thing as possible to create such a thing with, not sure if it's possible to create such a thing with all individuals if their logic and ego view is poor and they're not trusting the other person who does have a more objective idea of what's going on. And that's the other issue, it's a trust issue. But I think Kim's trust is growing. I think it makes sense that it works to kiss or hug Kim rather than to argue with her, because the reason she acts the way she does, possibly not triggered by words or logic either, so it's possible that it can't be solved by logic or talking. Actions are what make her behave the way she does, so possibly actions are also the thing that solve it too. She cannot talk in emotions, so she's forced to use words that never capture her emotions. And then you give some practical tips here, which are good ones as well. So, yeah, and I mean, I agree with that, and there's lots of things I can do. I was thinking last night, in general, that one of the problems is, and I got this, I started thinking about this because of the stuff I read in the chat last night on this video, that, you know, regardless of whether I continually point out that this is her behavior I'm critiquing and not her nature or whatever, there's definitely a sense that if I persist in trying to address the problem directly and make her, use to make the solvency happen through my tool function of TI, that I'm basically conveying to her that there's something wrong with the way she is, and there's no getting around that whether my words say those things or not. So that's kind of significant thought I was having, and hopefully I'll change my behavior a bit. Amy Camrath says if he'd be willing to work on his FI. That doesn't mean anything to me. It's like me saying Kim needs to be willing to work on her TE. No, she doesn't. I can't need that. That's something I'm not allowed to need, because she's never going to be able to accomplish anything in that. I mean, I could be, in a sense, what I need to do is to work on my TE to be more practical and less legitimacy oriented. Matthew Alistair says, and I thought this was an excellent comment, and Kimberly and I both enjoyed the comment a lot. You should try to just stop caring. You seeing the relationship as a project could be a turnoff. Like you're trying to subject everything to how are we doing, not doing things. Basically, like I'm being a soft boy, right? Mutual open analysis. I'm not taking a soft boy approach towards it, though, which probably would be more effective, frankly. Maybe it'll make you more mysterious and she'll be begging to know what you're thinking and how to better please you. You may be giving too much information and perceptions and honesty away at every turn. She's getting bored. I don't think that's the case. I don't think that... I don't think she's getting bored. I think that... it's complicated. But your suggestion here is not bad, okay? And if she's being resistant to sex, don't give her the ability to feel like she can withhold it from you. Act like you don't want it. Or read the Sports Illustrated swimsuit issue or excitedly or run a mile or call Pukoki. Hey, Pukoki, what's up? Sooner or later, Kim will come running to you wondering why you aren't trying to fuck her, and then you're out of the submissive waiting for some position. And if that doesn't work, just fuck the neighbor or the chicken. Alright, so Matthew's using some humor there, and... I enjoyed the comment, and obviously I'm not going to fuck the neighbor. Chicken, maybe. I mean, she and I are pretty tight, the chicken and I. I've already told Cam I'd be leaving her for the chicken. So she's aware that's a possibility. This, though, Kayla Burke. First, let me just say, right off the bat, she offers a lot of disclaimers about how this may be just her perspective or her projecting or something. And Kayla Burke, I'm going to say it kind of is you projecting here a bit. Matthew Allister, I consider him a friend and a good guy, and he's been nothing but cool with me and Kim, and we're just not FI people. This comment here, you say you're an INFJ and you share FE in the secondary slot, but this sounds like a really FI comment, you know, and maybe you are INFJ and maybe it's just you're feeling a lot of FI. We all do sometimes. Matthew Allister is not a shit person. I know people aren't going to like me saying this, but I feel I should, because I've really hated it in my own life when people sat by as bystanders and didn't say anything. A borderline rapist. That's insane. I mean, what you're doing rhetorically here is way worse than anything Matthew did. So you just gotta deal with that. But, I mean, the thing is, I don't mean to invalidate your comment here entirely. I do mean to entirely invalidate your attack on Matthew. But there's other things you say in this comment that I think are cogent and relevant and worth reading. So I'll proceed forward. What Kimberly wants to feel is like Eric's one and only. Now, when we read it, Kimberly and I together, I should have started the video then, but I didn't. I just didn't start until after we read through the whole thing. She said she does. That's not an issue. I realize that a person can only interpret so much about people through YouTube videos, so these are obviously just my opinions, and they're probably biased by my own experiences, but it seems like Kimberly's response to feeling like she's not Eric's one and only, I can't think of a less cliche way to say that, is to say harsh things in order to try to get him to change. I mean, I think Kimberly feels resentful when I'm not behaving according to her script in general. And she's okay with adjusting her script somewhat, but my nature requires a lot of script adjusting, you know, and she gets frustrated with that. I feel things very intensely, especially the feeling of betrayal, which can come in all sorts of ways for me. For instance, when I feel like I'm giving more into the relationship than my partner and he doesn't really care, that's a betrayal to me. I've also noticed that host Eric every once in a while makes passing comments about other women. He doesn't say anything bad or inappropriate, but I know, at least in my own life, that's gotten to me in a lot of relationships. It doesn't seem to bother Kim at all. If it did, I wouldn't do it. I do make little comments occasionally about, like, look at that chick over there. Kimberly just seems to think that that's normal. I don't know. I wouldn't be okay if she were doing it. And we acknowledge that there's a double standard there. I don't know, it's just me being playful, making little jokes. Like, I watched this video of this lady yesterday that, you know, when she was making these shirts on the video, she leaned way over and you could see weight on her shirt and see a bunch of boobage, and I was just like, hell yeah, boobage. You know, I don't know, I'm a man. What can I say? You see boobs, and you're just like, boobs. Okay. So, But let's see. When I'm invested in my life, when I've invested my life and my heart into somebody, I want to know that they love me inside and out. So the comments that may not be a big deal to the guy I'm with can be a really big deal to me. I think that it's the opposite with me and Kim, that it's her comments in general that may not seem like a big deal to her, that are kind of cutting, that I think are a big deal to me, not necessarily because of the cuttingness of the comment or what she's saying or that it cut me, but that it's indicative of a communication style in which she's willing to attempt to do that, and I don't find that acceptable in a relationship. So that's what that's about. She's in her 20s. Porn is just rampant, so most men have grown up with it and gotten used to seeing women as objects for their own pleasure. I grew up with it too. Granted, I grew up with it in Penthouse Forum magazine and other magazines that I had stashed away in my closet and stuff. But, then the internet came around and I had porn that way as well. The other thing is, when it says here, no woman wants to be seen that way. That's not true, okay? There are lots of women who get off on being submissive, and in the safety of a relationship, people play those kind of games all the time, and they get off on exactly that, being objectified or whatever, and that's okay. I mean, I would say that when it's happening outside of a relationship, it's a lot more tricky, but it depends on the woman as well. Some of them, want to go get raunchy, and so be it. That's not me. That's not my situation, but there ain't nothing wrong with it if it's what everybody wants. It's not true that no women want that. And I don't know if Matthew Allister is having a problem finding a partner or not. Seems like a handsome and socially capable young man. So I'm sure if he put some energy into it, he would be quite successful at finding a partner. I already tried to hook up him and Pukoki, but it didn't work. Let's see, who else I gotta hook him up with? How about Molly the person? Why don't I hook you up with her? What? She's in a relationship? Oh. I don't know, Matthew, then. You're on your own. Let's see. Amy Camrath says, Eric, much more damage can happen prior to having the capacity to be rational and understand what's truly going on. You too were once a vulnerable, irrational human being. Me? Vulnerable and irrational? Amy Camrath, I am shocked and offended by your accusation. I'm appalled. Maybe we cried because we were hungry and Mom took too long to tend to us since we couldn't compartmentalize that. Maybe she didn't hear us or was in the middle of taking a shit or something. We instead irrationally concluded that something must be wrong with us. It hurts to hold that conclusion about ourselves, though, because it's not true. What do? We decide to shut off our ability to feel. We distract ourselves, numb ourselves, focus on something that feels better, etc. The consequence of this is that we no longer feel whole and complete and don't remember our irrational conclusion. As we get older, we go about our lives trying to fill the whole of self-abandonment with relationships, things, status, fame, etc., which aren't up to the task. These things can be wonderful, enriching, and healthy for us to enjoy, but they will not remedy self-abandonment. What is truly needed is for us to understand that we abandoned ourselves, to be willing to feel the pain and grief of having done that, and once again become hospitable to the entirety of our feeling and emotional experience. Of course, people are not free to address this, are free to not address this, but like Anna T mentioned, life tends to put pressure on us to do so, especially in intimate relationships. Two people can have a codependent arrangement where they agree to not call each other out on their destructive behavior, but unless their shit is pretty much at the same level and considered to be of tolerable variety to one another, it's going to be volatile rather than harmonious and sustainable. We want to stop using our button-pushing finger as a weapon and stop having our buttons pushed by others. We want to feel a love that is not dependent on conditions. It doesn't come and go. We need to welcome the experience we've been avoiding, the one that created the buttons and holes in the first place. Okay, well, I think that's just a beautifully written comment. It's like there are obviously very intelligent people who comment on this shit, which is extremely, I guess, flattering and gratifying to know. I don't think this is true for everybody. I think, it's like, I don't feel as though I don't feel as though I sustained much damage really in childhood. I think I was always fed as soon as I cried. I think I was always loved, smothered almost in love from birth onward until, you know, I don't know. So, I mean, I do think that people, like, it's true that I am engaged in this distract ourselves, numb ourselves, focus on something that feels better, seek relationships, things, status, fame, etc. I do seek those things. But to the extent that they fill a hole, I don't believe it's a hole of the same sort that you talk about here. I think it's it's got to be a hole that it emerges from not really having a relationship with my own feelings very much, you know? Not attending to them very often. So, yeah, that's a good comment, though. Really good. I think it's probably true for people who do sustain certain kinds of damage. Fields of Dragonflies says, me and my partner had a rocky start of our relationship. In the first 5 years or so was a test of wills, and we fought over the most trivial stuff, which in all honesty was what was trivial to me was important to her and vice versa. Oh, you're a dude. What put us on the right track, or unless you're a lesbian, possibly, I guess. What put us on the right track is the development. I mean, what dude would name himself Fields of Dragonflies? What put us on the right track is the development of the art of communication with one another. Now, I'm not saying that you both don't have it. On the contrary, you guys have a great skill of communication. Sometimes we do, and sometimes we really don't. And what you say here is absolutely right. The trick, though, is to fine-tune it to suit the person you're with, and that's what I need to do a better job of. Because the thing is, I have more capacity to adapt and to be to rise above in some regard. So it's my responsibility to do it. And, well, it's like you say down here. For me, what made the tipping point is finding the world of personality type, studying and learning the cognitive functions. They helped me tremendously in understanding why my partner thinks and behaves the way she does, and for me as well. Eric, you need to use your vast knowledge of these functions and apply them to your own relationship. Though understandably, you may not be inclined to take on such an endeavor. It'll be worth it, trust me. I am inclined to take on such an endeavor. The problem is, a lot of the things related to me and Kimberly having difficulties are the ways in which she deviates from her typical because of attachment style issues. She's an atypical ISFJ. You know, she's much more fighty than most of them, and just less trusting, less cooperative, all that kind of stuff. But things are changing, and like conversations like this, where we talk it out online, and you know, it was funny because I put that there as sort of a general topic of ask us about relationships, thinking I'll just sort of pontificate about relationships, but it ended up being a therapy session for me and Kimberly, basically a group therapy session where everybody chimed in and offered their thoughts and stuff, and I complained and Kimberly complained, and we talked it out a bit and stuff, and you know, because we're not going anywhere. There's no way that Kimberly and I are going to break up. So it's just a matter of time of us figuring out how to be the right kind of nice to each other. And that's really what it boils down to. I don't like it when she's mean to me. She doesn't like it when I'm mean to her. We have different interpretations of what that means. For me to be mean to Kimberly doesn't require me to do anything particularly. It just means I'm not paying enough attention to her, or I am slightly dismissive in my tone, or, you know, it could be anything like that. So, anyway, I just wanted to say thanks to everybody who commented, and the comments were amazing. And I appreciate everybody's input. It's really helpful, and it makes the actual big difference in my relationship. You know, Kimberly and I read through all those comments together, and she takes things seriously when people other than me say them. So, you know, I take things seriously too. I hear what's being said to me as well. I'm not without responsibility here, and I hope to do a better job of fulfilling those responsibilities in the future. Anyway, thanks a lot, and don't forget to eat plenty of cheese.